What is up? This is alertwolf here, bringing you a video response to uberhikari's video review of Legend of Korra Season 1. Let me just come off the bat. If you're looking for me to argue with uberhikari, that's not what I'm doing. Actually, I think he had a pretty good video, and I agree with almost all his points. But there was a couple of things I thought he didn't bring up. Maybe, he just didn't think of it. And those things I want to express in this video. Just two big plot holes that or a couple of big plot holes that I saw that bothered the hell out of me. So, that being said, let's just jump right into it. The first plot hole, excuse me, has to do with Korra herself. And her abilities as a bender. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather here, and it's raining, so excuse the noise. But basically, when Aang in the first show, he had to learn, when he learned his elements, he was under the gun. He had about a year to learn the elements, to defeat the Fire Lord, and to get it done. So he had to learn 3 elements in about a year. And he did what he had to do. But it made sense that Aang couldn't do the advanced form of any of the other bending styles. So he couldn't not fire bend, but lightning bend. He couldn't metal bend, even though, metal bending was invented by Toph. He couldn't do it, obviously. He didn't have time to learn it. And he couldn't blood bend, and obviously Katara was against blood bending, but he couldn't do the lesser form of plant bending, right? And that makes sense. He didn't have the time. That makes perfect sense. So, at least it does to me. So then, let's jump to Korra now. Korra, when you see her as a little girl, knows all the first 3 elements. She was basically born with the knowledge. It came that naturally to her. And then she gets taken away by the White Lotus Society, which, let me remind you, in the whole show, they were the most OP masters, bending masters on the planet. For the good guys. To be trained for about 10 years she spends in training, right? She comes out of there when she's like, 16? So for basically 10 years, I could be wrong with the exact, it could be like 8 or 6, but I'm going to say 10 years. So for 10 years, she was trained by the foremost masters in the bending world, right? She was already at these 3 elements, which she was naturally good at, and basically learned from birth. So you're going to tell me she can't lightning bend, she can't metal bend, and fine, blood bending was outlawed, but she can't plant bend either? Are you serious? Really? Really? She just knows the basic elements. That's it. That's all she knows. She only knows the 3 basic elements. She got no skills, no better in all that time of training. What she learned the forms. That's all she did was freaking katas. Horrible. Horrible. She should have been ridiculously OP in the other elements from jump just because of how they set up the series. And then, fine, this should have been her learning airbending, and it should have taken her a while. And that could have even explained away why she never went into the Avatar state, because she should have been so badass that she never even needed to go into the friggin' Avatar state. But, the need would have been little. But no, it didn't do that, and she's just, basically, after all those years of training, weaker than Aang was after his year of training to learn the other elements. You know what I'm saying? Like, she spent 10 years training those 3 elements. 10 years! And she came out of it no better than Aang did after 1 year of training, a few months each element. So, So that was a big gripe, and it's a huge plot hole. I'm sorry. She should have been nasty. I mean, even Mako can lightning bend, and freaking you know, all the cops can metal bend, but this chick can't do any of that. And okay, she can heal bend or whatever. She can do her healing thing, but that's not the advanced form of water bending. So, yeah, it's just not right. All right, so that's my first grievance, so to speak. My second grievance has to do with the whole, in the beginning of the show, the firebender that killed everybody's parents and was never brought up again. The way this was done is you would almost assume that it felt more like that it was going to be it wasn't like a subplot of the show, but it was going to be an arching plot that created the main plot of this current season and then would have maybe continued to the later seasons. He might have even been the true villain of the series. That's the impression left, because remember, a firebender killed Mako Bolin's parents, Asami's mother, supposedly in the beginning of the show killed Amon's family and torched his face and supposedly sent him down the path of evil. So, or not evil, or just the wrong path. So you get all these things, and in the beginning you're assuming it's the same guy, because they don't say firebenders, they say firebender, a firebender. So you assume it's the same guy. You assume he's around for a while, and then Korra has a couple of her first flashback or so. Then there's some sort of villain he's fighting and taking down. So maybe you're assuming, because the last Avatar struggle and conflict was set up by the failure of Roku at the end of his life. Maybe Aang's failure towards the end of his life may have set up this whole dilemma. Like, it was his failure. Like, maybe he didn't stop this firebender, or especially, or something, or maybe he was the one who taught him on energy bending, because in the beginning you thought he was an energy bender. So, but back to what I'm saying is, there was a lot of possibilities, and it just seemed like that. Okay, we wouldn't find out about this guy. We may get hints of this guy, and we wouldn't maybe find out about him until a few seasons down the line, And we got none of that. It was just a coincidence. It just turns out that if your parents died in the Avatar world, chances are a firebender killed them. That's pretty much it. Oh, what happened to you? Oh, man, I lost my mom and dad. Yeah, me too. How did yours die? Ah, firebender. How did yours die? Ah, firebender. And then, that would mean that there should be a lot more firebending hate in the world, which instead the hatred is towards all benders instead of firebenders, because then you wonder about that. So Aang managed to heal the strife between the world and firebenders, but now there's just the world and benders. So I don't even know what to make of that, and so that was a big thing for me. It was a big letdown. You get the first few episodes, and you're assuming this is going to be an important foreshadowing of information to maybe the next season. Like, you figured Amon was the villain, or possibly the Zuko of the series, and maybe he would become good later, because again, he was never really that bad of a guy to begin with. And, just briefly, I'll get into Amon. Now, I know there was the debate on whether or not he was a villain up until the end of the show, or not, or just misguided. And he was misguided, but some of the actions he took were terrorist and, I would say, extreme actions. And what I mean by that is, alright, taking away a gangster's bending, for example, people that have killed people, not necessarily an evil act. I mean, Aang's done the same thing. provided judge and jury on it. But taking away an asshole bender kid's bending just because he's a jerk, and then regular benders just because they're benders, it is in itself an evil action, because what he does is he basically cripples them to make them the same. That's akin to going, well, I can't hear out of my left ear, so I'm going around to make us all equal, freaking removing your left ear. That doesn't work, or if I'm blind in one eye, blinding everybody in one eye who disagrees with me, so that we're all equal. So that in itself is an act of villainy, but he had redeeming qualities. He had almost an anti-hero, or he had a quality that was, that he felt was justified by his point of view of his situation, which turned out to be bullshit. And then his reasons for it was just because his dad was a dick. Daddy was a dick and used to beat me, so I don't. And then he didn't actually beat him, too. That's even worse. Daddy made me shoot things with a gun, and I was good at it. So now I don't shoot things anymore. Gross. But, so that bothered me. And then let's just get into his energy bending, and it turned into blood bending. Now, I think Amon being a blood bender is freaking cool too, because I like blood bending. I think that's the most awesome thing they ever did. It was kind of a letdown, because it's weird. How did the writers take something as cool as blood bending and just let you down with it? It's because, maybe it could have been Aang taught this kid energy bending, because energy bending is the original bending. He had to have taught it to somebody so it could be passed down to the later generations. It was a lost bending art. So, maybe to teach this kid balance. That's what I thought, That's what I was hoping. Aang did this to try to help this kid attain balance, and then, Amon went a different route with it, because we don't know how Aang died. We don't know what killed Aang and how, or if he died of old age, so there could have been room for development. But then they made him a freaking waterbender. And then, on the whole energy bending thing, the way Amon energy bended wasn't the way it was done in the original show. Which is, in the original show, there was, the aura, there was a battling of the aura, or the chi. The Avatar's chi over the Fire Lord's chi. So, and it was a suppression. Yes, Amon was touching the same spot. And then later you found out what Amon did was an energy bending, but he accomplished the same thing by blocking the chakra with a blood bending move. So it's similar to what was done to Aang when he had the lightning, when he was hit with lightning that blocked his chakra, preventing him from going into the Avatar state until the end of the show, where that rock basically pushed a disc back in, almost in his back, and fixing his chakra point, unblocking it. And, which could mean his obviously it meant that you could reverse his style of taking away people's bending, because it was just a blocked chi point. But then they went against their own canon material with that one flashback that says that Aang no longer, you see a light show when Aang does it. It's just you're good. And I guess they did this, the writers did this to keep you guessing that he might have still been an energy bender. But, it's, sorry, just got to stretch there. But, to me, it was lazy. It was bad. It undid what they even said was necessary to accomplish this, and I wasn't a fan of it. I think that was horrible. The whole energy bending thing was It's basically they trolled us with it. And then they trolled bloodbending with Amon. Not with Tarlok. Tarlok's bloodbending was awesome, but Amon bloodbending was trolled too. You know, because he kind of panics, and he just starts doing all these moves that he shouldn't be able to do, and then, you know, using, and I'm I'm sorry to say, being a hypocrite doesn't automatically remove you as being the leader of some of the biggest anti-Semites in history were Jews. So, or of Jewish descent and had some Jewish blood in them. Karl Marx had some Jewish blood in him, I believe. And, he was a huge anti-Semite. So this would not have necessarily gotten people to oust him. At the worst case scenario, he would have been ousted. But on the best case scenario, he could have just said, this is why this form, he could have stayed in power. He was that righteous in his beliefs, and so that, no, I'm just going to quickly address the pacing and address the writers. I'm not as harsh on them as you. Well, yeah. When you break down episode for episode, we were all on the seat of our pants, so to speak, waiting to see what would happen. Seat of the pants. That phrase didn't even work. But all on the edge of our seats, waiting to see what had happened next. And some episodes, you're right, let us down. But overall, that's the way we felt. Like, oh, what's going to happen now? Oh, what's going on here? Oh, and they had some tension through some episodes. I'm not going to say they did it for every episode. I'm just going to say they did do that to you. And then by the time the end of the show came around, and you were like, what the fuck did I just watch? That's neither here nor there. But, whereas I agree with you, having 12 episodes isn't an excuse. I will say I understand the writers from a storyteller's point of view. And what I mean by that is, the writers had an idea for a new show. They had this big story in mind that would at least take in 2 seasons. And that's what they asked for initially. But they were only greenlighted for one season, and with option to renew for another season. Now, what that means is that they only had one season. They only had one season. They could not count on a second season. So that's why when they wrapped up the last 2 episodes moved like that, and then she freaking learned everything from energy bending to air bending to avatar state. And then she fixed everybody, and it was so final, the way they ended that story, was because they didn't think they had another season when they were shooting. And so from a storyteller's point of view, you have this huge story, and you've already written the outline. Obviously I didn't write the episodes yet, but you have this huge story you want to tell with all these plot points and things, and you're only, you're given this small program, but you didn't, sometimes you just don't know how to scale things down. And like I said, I'm not excusing them for that action, but what I'm saying is I understand it. And that understanding will allow me to give this series another chance. Now that they have at least 2 more seasons, if not, I think they may even have a third or a 4th season coming. So they've been renewed, and they've been given a bunch of time. I believe at least 2 seasons to work with. Let's see what they can do. I mean, where do they go from here? There's other avenues, I don't know. But they have time to work with this time. And the pacing of the first show was pretty good. So, because of the first show, and because of the potential that they fucked up with this show, but at least there was the seeds of good writing mixed in before they stuffed it out. I'm going to give the show one more chance. I know you're not. I mean, maybe you're going to watch it, uberhikari, but I will give it one more shot. I'm not going to say I'm going to review the thing, and I may, but I am going to give it a shot. So, yeah. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. So click it up, subscribe if you can, comment if you must, and this has been Alert Wolf signing off.